10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Our fight to eradicate corruption, maladministration, unethical leaders, and the abuse of taxpayers' money by those in power continues. It's fresh, it's fearless, and focused. The OUTA Hour, where your voice matters.
And hello, welcome to the OUTA Hour. I'm Tom London with you for the next 60 minutes. Hey, it's the 10th birthday. OUTA turns 10 this year, and we're going to be celebrating 10 years of OUTA's success on the show, as well as bringing you some updates from Liz McDaid and Brendan Slade. And our special guest in the studio is Ali Gule, who has been at OUTA for a long time. He's probably one of the longest serving employees or members of OUTA. And it's good to have Ali in the studio. How's it, Ali? Nice to have you with us.
Hey, Tom, good evening, and thanks for having me. I can't believe I've been here for 10 years, and thanks for celebrating the 10th anniversary with us. Hopefully, the next 10 years, you'll still be with us as well.
I hope so, too. Now, we normally ask you to post your comments in the comment section down below the video, but tonight we are doing something new. We are moving the stream onto YouTube as well. So we'd like to welcome our YouTube viewers to the OUTA Hour. This is a new experience for you. The OUTA Hour is on every Wednesday at 7 p.m. So you can catch us live at 7 p.m. or watch anytime you like. Now, while we trialing Facebook and YouTube, I'm just taking a look at my screen. I'm not seeing any comments popping up. Those will be available soon, say the third-party app providers. But tonight it's just Ali and myself and the team on air, and Samantha van Nispen and Masego Motsoneng will be moderating comments in the comment section as per usual. We just won't be putting them up on screen this evening. Apologies for that. But do continue the conversation in the comment section down below and engage with your friends and community and people that you're making friends with on a weekly basis. Don't be afraid to engage with the team in the comment section. And remember that OUTA is there to answer any of your questions. We'll pop those into the broadcast as soon as we can. Now, let's start off with the first topic of conversation tonight, and that is celebrating OUTA's 10th year, OUTA's 10th birthday, this organization that started 10 years ago as a movement against e-tolls and the unjust at the time. No public consultation, no transparency, you name it. That was the deal when it came to e-tolls. And so OUTA was born out of this e-tolls unhappiness and displeasure that we saw around the country, and particularly in Gauteng. I thought what we'd do is we'd go back in time tonight and ask Ali to take us right back to the beginning. He's got a lot of stories to tell and spends a lot of time at the organization. So let's ask Ali to take us back 10 years or so and just describe the very beginnings of OUTA according to you, Ali.
Tom, I never thought I'll go this long, and I never knew I was going to be where I am today in OUTA. When I heard about OUTA, I thought it was just a campaign against e-tolls then. I had my own beef, so to speak, against e-tolls because it was introduced in the public space with wrong text. There was a lot of propaganda, and I was trying to just make people aware that this thing, this animal then, there was everything wrong about it because it was said to the people, this was a form of a tax that would be plowed back to the roads for quality roads, but it was not going to tax ordinary people, your poor of the poorest, so to speak, they would say. It was meant to tax middle-class people, probably rich people as well. And I thought that there was something wrong about that as an activist, because even if you're using public transport, whether it's a train, a taxi, or a bus, most of the commodities, be your food, your clothes, are being transported by trucks on the road. So any
True.
business
Yeah.
person who incurs more cost, whether in a form of a tax or fuel, that will be eventually passed to the consumers. That was my point, because people were deceived that it has got nothing to do with ordinary people. I wanted to fight it, but there was nothing I could do. I said, okay, let me lay it to rest. There's nothing. I tried to talk to several people. They were not interested until OUTA came into the public domain. That's how I knew about the OUTA. In fact, I saw OUTA on TV. I don't know these guys. Who are these guys on television fighting such a big project? And I decided to come on board. That's my history, how I got involved.
And tell me about the beginnings, the very beginnings of OUTA. What are your memories of the early days of OUTA?
The early days, I did not know Wayne personally. I did not know Wayne's legal teams. I saw these guys on television one evening challenging OUTA. I said, come on, who are these guys? I told my wife I want to be part of those guys. She said, no, do you know these guys? I said, no, I don't know. And I did not even know where to get hold of them. So all I know, I didn't sleep that night, making just one simple poster that says "a thief," meaning this thug was here to rob the community. The next morning, I didn't even have money for fuel the next morning. I remember very well. I catch a train to Pretoria. I stood outside at the court with one board. I've never heard of one-man protest, but I decided to invent.
All right, so you're doing a one-person
one-man
protest. Yeah?
I remember very well. The guy who was a television guy was covering the story, approached me. I said, are you here for the case? I said, yeah. He asked me, is this a protest? I said, yes, a protest. But he asked, where are the others? I said, they are coming
The other
in a
55
bus.
million South Africans are
They
at
are
home.
coming in a bus. Probably the bus is having trouble somewhere. The next time he saw me, I was still alone. Then it becomes a humor. He said, oh, I guess they haven't fixed the bus. Hey, you're still alone here. He called me a broken bus man, but I got used to the guy. So the television guys and some media took some few pictures of me which were flighted, and Wayne was seeing this guy standing alone with the placard outside. He was looking for me, and I was looking for him as well, and eventually we met. Wayne asked me, why are you supporting OUTA? I said, I'm not supporting OUTA. I'm supporting in principle. I'm against ethos. And the rest is history. And then we got to know each other. Here we are 10 years down the line. I'm still stuck with OUTA, and I'm happy. And this is my second family. I'm happy to be here. Hopefully the next 10 years I will still be here, and OUTA is what OUTA is today.
Well, it started with a very small team and then expanded to the current size of 40-odd people working at OUTA. But just take us through the journey from the beginning. What did you see grow, and what did you see being built at OUTA over the years?
Look, even if I'm blowing my own horn, OUTA is a force to be reckoned with. When I got involved, probably the management as well, the leadership of OUTA, we did not realize that ethos were just one piece of a puzzle that forms a broader picture of corruption in general. So when OUTA realized that the problem was not only with ethos, it was just a tip of an iceberg. There was a bigger picture underneath. When we scratched the surface, we realized that OUTA was needed more than we anticipated, more than we bargained for. And today, OUTA is fighting all forms of corruption against the abuse of taxpayers. And look, the picture that was created out there, I reckon, we were seen as people fighting revolution, fighting the government. We're not enemies of the government. We're not even opposition to the government. We just want the right thing to be done. And unfortunately, some government officials and politicians don't like to be questioned. But something that has not been mentioned very often, OUTA was a wake-up call to many law-abiding citizens, that you must wake up, stand up, and be counted for your rights. Probably to certain organizations as well. There were civil societies that were there before OUTA, but OUTA's arrival has also rekindled their activeness. So they are also very active now because of OUTA, and I can proudly say OUTA is leading the pack. But it's not for our own glorification; it is for the community.
Well, let's talk about that, because your title is Community Engagement Coordinator. What does that mean? What is your job at OUTA?
I'm the guy on the ground. I'm a musketeer on the ground. I got involved with the community. I've got a team of people protesting. We have been involved in the thick of things, in the protest, on the bridge, everywhere. It's not easy. At some stage, you'll remember that OUTA was in the forefront when there was a campaign that says Zuma must fall. I had to organize people. At one stage, I brought 3 buses full of people. And we made people aware that we're not fighting a government, but we're fighting for the right thing. The money that is squandered, the money that is siphoned, whether out of the country or into certain people's pockets, that money could be diverted for the good use, for essential needs. Remember, we've got kids still learning under the trees, almost 3 decades into democracy. We've got certain hospitals and clinics without medication. We've got a lot. We don't have proper roads in some stage. We've got contaminated roads. We've got ESCOM switching on and off, like your disco lights. We've got serious trouble.
That's the first time I've heard ESCOM switching on and off like the disco lights, but you're right.
It happens all the time. The load shedding, everything that we're trying to make people aware that we're not fighting against government. We just want to make them accountable for our taxpayers. It's the right thing to do. And gradually, I think the perception about OUTA and about other civil societies is gradually changing. People are starting to realize that we're not so bad after all. We just want the right thing to be done. That is what OUTA is all about.
Well, I think you represent the wishes of most honest and law-abiding South Africans at the end of the day.
That's what we do. But more often than not, regarding your question about my involvement and my title, look, before I answer that, the greatest advantage about OUTA has this ability of assembling a team from all walks of life with different expertise, qualification, and knowledge.
Tell us a bit about this team that you work with on a daily basis. I mean, we're familiar with a few of the faces and voices on the OUTA Hour, but who do you interact with on a daily basis, and how would you describe the team that you work with at OUTA?
This team is fantastic. We have become overnight celebrities by default. It's not meant to that. What our duties is to brand OUTA there, but the crucial role of that team is to spread out the message. Remember when we were from the beginning, when we were fighting e-tolls, we were to win the hearts of the motorists to vote with their wallets. We had to be on the bridge to spread the message that we are not alone. We're not going to pay e-tolls. SANRAL needed not less than 85% compliance in order for the scheme to work. But when the people were not registering, when the people were not buying e-tax, when the people were not complying by paying for e-tolls, it literally collapsed the scheme. Therefore, our messages has to go out to the people, make people see and hear what we are all about. But in the process, we're branding the entity as well, and it works like a charm. It works brilliant. We are always out there. The media knows about us. The motorist knows about us. If you've been on the bridge, you hear the hooting, flashing of lights.
Well, I've been on a bridge brigade with you, and I want to ask you about bridge brigades. You've been doing them for a while now.
Since 2012, actually, since March 2012. I don't know how many years we've been doing that. Since 2012, unceasingly, continuously. People knows about us. People take pictures of us, post in the social media. People hood, people show signs that we are with you. That's why OUTA is growing. And that must be converted into supporters. Remember, in order for OUTA to operate, we need some resources, we need some funds. If I had to make a plea today, it's good that we get appreciation and recommendation and compliments for the people. But it's time people walk the talk. Support OUTA, join us, contribute to any other thing, because on daily basis, the costs are rising higher and higher. Financial constraints hinder our progress, because we need to do this much. But we cannot do that without resources. We cannot do that by not paying overheads and paying people's salaries. We need support of people. We need people to stand up and rally behind OUTA. Then we can do what is expected for us.
Well, Wayne always says with a bit more money, you can increase the size of the team and tackle more projects. It makes sense. If you've just joined us, welcome to the OUTA Hour. I'm Tom London, with you until 8 o'clock tonight. If you're watching the live broadcast, thank you very much for joining us. Remember, you can pop your comments in the comment section down below. And Masego Motsoneng and Samantha Van Nispen is on the YouTube side tonight. They'll be moderating comments. Have a chat with them. OUTA is watching your comments and looking for your comments and questions. With me in studio is Ali Gule. Ali is the OUTA Community Engagement Coordinator. We are busy celebrating 10 years of OUTA tonight, and we are going back into Ali's memory to give us a few stories and anecdotes over the last 10 years or so. Tell us about the bridge brigades. What are some of the most memorable bridge brigades you've held? I mean, I know if you're a motorist in Gauteng and you've used the highways in Gauteng, it's impossible not to have seen OUTA's banners and the OUTA Bridge Brigade team on top of the bridges. And I've been on the other side of it. I've been on your side of it at a bridge brigade, and the amount of cars that hoot and truckers that hoot and thumbs up out the windows as the cars pass underneath the bridge is astounding. It shows you the level of support for OUTA and OUTA's cause. But take us to some of your memorable moments.
Tom, there's a difference between the bridge brigade team and just a billboard that is standing next to the road.
Okay.
The bridge brigades are people. We are alive. We communicate with you. We've got an eye contact with the people. They hood, we respond, and we're waving the flags of South Africa. The flags shows that that we're compatriots to the country. We part of the country. That shows that we're not fighting the country. We're building the country. We're not fighting the government. In fact, if the government can realize we are on their side, we're not fighting them. And often they scared, they threaten that we're fighting them because they threaten for what? If they've got nothing to hide, they should not be afraid of us. We're telling the people to do the right thing. The message that we are putting out there is for the future of South Africa. It's good for the country. And when we're there, what is important is for the motorist to glance, take a look at the message, understand what we're saying, rally behind us. We are concerned. We are building the future. Everything that OUTA is doing, everything that the team is doing is about the future of South Africa. You've seen our messages. We've posted our messages on our website. Everything that OUTA do, everything that OUTA does is for the good of the country. And that team is brilliant. We've been all over the country. We've been to Cape Town. Liz knows about us. Chris has joined us. Team and other colleagues are looking for us to come down to Durban. We communicate to the people. The law enforcement officials are very impressed with because we do not interfere with the traffic. We do not interfere with the public. You'll be surprised. You've been on the bridge. You've seen traffic cops. You've seen police hooting, joining us.
I've seen police and traffic cops hooting as well.
Hooting because that shows whatever we are doing is above law. We are law.
Right, give us a memorable moment. What are some of the things that stand? Is there a memorable bridge brigade that stands out, or moments that stand out for you?
One thing that stands out for me is in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, is 18 October 2014, when we decided to take the fight to the doorstep of SANRAL. We've asked our supporters and the members of the public to collect their bills, their invoices about ETOs. We put that in a coffin, a mock coffin. We drove to SANRAL head office in Pretoria. If you Google those pictures, they're still online. Then we burned all the outstanding, not unpaid ETOs invoices at their gate. That was a demonstration that people of South Africa are saying to SANRAL, we'll never pay ETOs. And they were banned there. That was a symbol that never again it will happen. It has never happened before that people will be taken for a ride. And SANRAL has done that. It has taken people for a ride. If I was in position of SANRAL, they should be learning a lesson from that by embarking on such a massive project without consulting the people.
What do you see when you're conducting a bridge brigade from the general public?
Tom, I think every time I'm in there, it's a priceless moment. And people, it's a hope for people. At least it gives people hope that at least there are people on their side. In fact, government should be learning something, that if people support OUTA, if people are hooting, if people are supporting what we're doing,
should take a listen and take note.
They should be taking note that there's something they're not doing right, and there's something that we're doing that is right. They should be learning, but I don't think they're learning at the moment.
What are your wishes for the next 10 years?
I think I don't wish anything better than what we're doing. All what we do is just to do better. But with the kind of team that we have rallied behind, that has been assembled, OUTA is growing higher and higher. OUTA is one of the best things that has ever happened in this country.
Well, while we're talking about journeys with OUTA, why don't we bring in the other two contributors tonight and say hello to Liz McDaid down in Cape Town. Liz is OUTA's parliamentary advisor. And I thought, Liz, while we're chatting and celebrating 10 years, let's go back to your beginning and your journey at OUTA. How did it all begin, and what has your experience been so far?
Well, I think I started before I actually joined OUTA, I saw that OUTA as a civil society organization was really needed to hold government to account. And at the time, we were fighting the nuclear deal. And then OUTA partnered with the other civil society organizations that I was with in order to produce a video which showed that we could never afford the nuclear deal. And at that time, we didn't even know how much it was going to cost. But OUTA took a leadership role in actually helping and supporting safety and earth life at that time. And that's what I remember is coming in. And you said it was a small team. I think I met 3 people. There were probably others in the background, but that was my memory. And what I really remember was the enthusiasm and passion that all the people had for taking things forward. So I think it's great. And
your experience since then, Liz, your experience working with OUTA and your general comments as we celebrate 10 years?
Well, I think the power of OUTA is that people work in teams and they are aiming to take action, to address a wrong that must be righted, something that is unacceptable from a public interest perspective. And that's the strength of working with OUTA. And I'm looking forward to Ali being in Cape Town with regular bridge brigades, because I think there's many issues that we should have bridge brigades all over the country, so that we can just highlight what OUTA can do going forward, as well as what it's done, to date. So I think OUTA's had some good wins. I think we've made a difference, and going from strength to strength.
A lot of the action happens on the legal side, and Brendan Slade, Legal Project Manager, joins us now from his home office. Brendan, I'm going to put the same question to you that I posed to Ali and Liz. Describe your entry into OUTA and your experience so far.
Tom, hi to all the viewers out there this evening. Yeah, I share the sentiments by Ali. The energy is just amazing in this team. I started at OUTA back in 2016. I then worked for Allet Ace Attorneys in the interim, did a lot of ETIL work back then. But in the early days, little was known about OUTA, and OUTA was at that stage very synonymous with ETILs. I still vaguely remember switching on the TV before I worked for OUTA at the time, and it was just Wayne Divenage all over, and I thought to myself, wow, what a noble guy. This man has started quite something of a revolution. That's something I would like to be part of. And here we sit today. I mean, the team complements each other. There's always some form of ball in the air. We don't drop the balls. And if we slightly miss the ball, there's someone to catch it. So there's this camaraderie feeling. There's a whole set of expertise that you won't get anywhere else. And it's just an amazing team to work with. And it's quite the honor for me to be part of something so significant.
Let's, Brendan, dip into your projects for a moment, shall we? And one of the things we've been discussing on the show for some time now is the National Nuclear Regulator, the NNR. And there's been a bit of upheaval there recently. Now, if you're new to the show, or if you're new to the civil activist conversation, then just as a way of introduction, the NNR is a crucial state-owned institution that is responsible to regulate the nuclear industry. More importantly, nuclear safety in South Africa. A lot of important decisions are made by the NNR which directly affect the public. And recently, the NNR, or the minister, has suspended and subsequently discharged a civil society representative from the NNR board. Without civil society being represented, decisions are being made without scrutiny, including decisions on the future of the Kuberg nuclear power station. Transparency is key to proper and informed decision-making. It also enforces the independence of the NNR and instills public confidence, something that is severely lacking according to OUTA's observations and engagements. Now, the NNR's general attitude regarding transparency is concerning, says OUTA, as a lot of processes and decisions are effectively hidden from the public, and the NNR cannot be left to regulate without oversight. Even more concerning, says OUTA, is the fact that the board is appointed by Minister Gwede Mantashe, who just yesterday appears to be implicated in state capture. Brendan, these developments, we've been talking about them over the last couple of months, especially since the civil activist seat on the board effectively disappeared. I'm going to ask you if there's any movement there, whether someone else will be nominated and put onto into that position. But let's start off with the NNR's independence, shall we, on this crucial issue of nuclear energy. It seems obvious that we need an independent nuclear regulator. Is the NNR independent? What is OUTA's take on it?
Short answer is, on paper, it's independent. In reality, it's not. It's this big bastion of processes, bureaucracy, and stuff that just gets hidden from public scrutiny. So you alluded to the fact that Minister Gwede Mantashe was implicated in state capture in the Zondo Commission's report that came out yesterday. So this is an individual that pulls the strings in the NNR. This is the individual that appoints the board. This is the individual that, in this circumstance, got rid of the civil society representative. So it's one thing to say that, yes, we are a transparent regulator, and yes, we are following process, but as soon as you approach these types of regulators as civil society, we just start hitting brick walls, because then it's all of a sudden, it's then a question of we are protecting the commercial interest of third parties, or the buck keeps on passing to other third parties, whereby the NNR would just throw their hands up and say, listen, OUTA, this is not our job to do this. Mm-hmm. So just an example of this, if I may, is we asked the NNR recently if we can have sight of some reports that was conducted through a peer review process on the safety of Kuberg. So that's conducted by an international atomic body and members of that atomic body as well. I think Liz may just want to add something when it's her turn on that specifically. But this is something that ought to be available to the public, something that the public needs to take into consideration and make a call for themselves. So the NNR's short answer is, listen, OUTA, yes, we understand that we are the regulator of South Africa, the nuclear industry, but it's not really our job to make sure that the public is aware of that. And that's, to us, quite a slap in the face. That's contrary to what they stand for. That's contrary to what their mandate says. I mean, it's the regulator for Pete's sake.
Brendan, we've spoken about the civil society representative being ousted by the minister and now, no civil society seat on the board. Are there any new developments? Anything happening in this regard?
So when we last spoke, Mr. Peter Backer was suspended. They since launched an urgent court application for the reinstatement and for that decision to be set aside. But that urgent application did not continue. Shortly afterwards, Minister Montash came out and he said, all right, Mr. Backer, you are hereby formally discharged. So we have this period whereby Mr. Backer was on suspension. So in terms of the law, that suspension cannot be recognized. That means he was effectively still on the board during that period. He was only not considered a board member when the formal discharge came. So what happened then during the discharge or during the suspension is the NNR made crucial decisions on the future of Kuberg. So they obviously decided in Peter Backer's absence. Those decisions went by without any public oversight. So we don't even know what the records of those decisions entail. And in the meantime, now after the discharge, decisions are still being made. So these decisions are still not being scrutinized. For all we know, these decisions are even to the detriment of South Africa. So Peter's role specifically was to represent communities affected by nuclear activities. That is just a smart word in the legislation for a civil society representative.
Sure.
He is not there anymore. So what the minister has up his sleeve, I don't want to say up his sleeve, but he has the option in terms of the Act to, while there is no one on the board at the moment, he can still appoint an alternative director to fill that position.
But there doesn't seem to have been any urgency, Brendan, to put another director on the board from civil society's space.
No urgency, Tom, but to be frank, you can replace that word with it's very convenient for the NNR and the minister not to have somebody there right now. So the suspension came at a very crucial time. There are still more decisions to be made. There's no interim director at the moment, and the public hasn't got sight of anything that's going on at the moment.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you, is what does this mean for the public if the only seat on the board that belongs, so to speak, to civil society is gone, nobody's filling it? Is there any way for us, the South African public, to know what's going on in the board meetings of the NNR?
Well, first off, the NNR won't publish the information because they are the NNR. That is why we are trying to engage with the NNR. That's why there are engaged or campaigns going on at the moment by other civil societies for the NNR to be transparent. So what you as a supporter can do is join the crusade in fighting transparency. Demand answers from the NNR. The NNR ought to be the independent regulator that has the public interest at heart. By not allowing the public access to certain documentation, which, by the way, should be published in any event, we don't need to be in a position to ask for it. So as a supporter, as a member of the public, demand that documentation, demand that the NNR be transparent. Remind the NNR that they are the regulator and that it is the public that should be number one for me. Can you imagine if at some point in time there's some form of nuclear activity going on and the public did not have any form of participation in the process, and then there's a situation like we saw in Chernobyl or Fukushima, which could have been prevented had the NNR listened to what the public and other experts out there have to say. I'm not saying that the NNR are not experts in the field, but
Sure.
it is proper practice to also hear the side from other experts, to also hear what the public has to say should these experts within the NNR miss something, because human error is unfortunately something very real, and it can only be eradicated through proper oversight, through proper public participation with all the checks and balances in place.
And as you say, decisions being made without a representative from civil society on the board at the moment. You did mention that you met recently with the NNR. Did OUTA get any positive feedback? What did you get from that meeting?
Honestly, it was a typical government engagement. It's a whole reiteration of rules and processes which we already knew. It was just unfortunate for us to see this attitude from the NNR that you could clearly tell from their demeanor that they do not recognize themselves as the regulator. They recognize the entities and the licensees who they regulate to be much more important than the people who are affected by their decisions. Yes, I'm looking at Eskom. Yeah, it's really just disheartening, Tom, because one would think with everything going on in the country, there might be some voice of reason. There might be some regulated action.
Yeah. It sounds crazy. Let's ask Liz McDaid to jump in here, because energy is one of Liz's areas of expertise, and ask you, Liz, if you've got anything to add to what Brendan has been saying.
I think just 2 points. One thing we have to ask is, why is the NNR so secretive? What are they trying to hide? Because, it can't be right that have a civil society person on the board and you suddenly suspend, and certainly the reasons we're not totally sure, but so far it seems that one of the things that the minister was very public about is that he thinks it's a conflict of interest to have someone who has an opposing nuclear view on a board. Now, when you have a regulator, you seem to strengthen the regulation to have those diverse opinions. So I think for me, it's what are they trying to hide? The second point is a governance issue. In 2013, I think it was, the International Atomic Energy Agency produced a report. They do it quite often, and it's available on their website, which said that one of the failings for South Africa is that our regulator reports to the same minister, which is what Brendan alluded to, as the department that is promoting nuclear energy. And in fact, the minister has a performance indicator that he should have so much nuclear energy in the mix by 2024. So to me, if we want to get this country right, we have to work on governance. And if we're working on governance, then it means that NNR has to come to the party. They are not there to protect the nuclear industry. They are there to make sure that it's safe. And for that, they should welcome people with opposing views and different views into the board. They should be transparent. Why do we have to go through a higher route to try and get the minutes? They should be up there so that we can see what's going on. You look at NERSA, the energy regulator, their meetings, you can listen in to what their decisions are, and which is a fantastic transparency. So I think the nuclear industry was always shrouded with secrecy, and it's about time they came into the 21st century.
Here. Brendan, what does the future look like for Kuberg?
Well, referring to the engagements we had and the recent media statement by the NNR themselves, is the NNR has not yet received Eskom safety case. So there's no way for the public or for OUTA to see whether Eskom has complied with all the conditions it needs to in order to extend the life of Kuberg. So we were advised that the safety case will be received in what they call a phased approach. So the NNR will receive this at a later stage. And then they intend to kick off with the public participation process only in July of this year. So we'll keep an eye on the developments going forward. But it would be premature for OUTA now to try and stop any form of decision for the extension, because there's no decision to extend as we speak yet. So we will definitely partake in that process once it kicks off later this year.
What's becoming obvious in this conversation, Brendan, is the need for transparency. I mean, Liz mentioned NERSA is relatively transparent when it comes to their meetings. You can listen in, and then when it comes to the NNR, we just get nothing out of them. What can the public do to join this crusade for transparency? How do we achieve what we want here, which is a transparent nuclear regulator?
Well, you need to be visible, you need to be active, be part of your communities which are affected by nuclear activity, organize yourselves, be on social media, Twitter, whatever, let the NNR know that you are the public, you want them to work for you, because that is what they should do. On the other hand, what OUTA is doing about this is we are asking, yet again, for more information via PIA, because this information is not made available to us. So we are asking, amongst other things, for the board minutes of the decisions made in the absence of Peter Backer on the board. We are asking for other subcommittee decisions made, and we're also asking for the reasoning behind why Peter Backer was suspended in the first place. It's the public's right to know what's going on there, and if the minister is being biased, which we suspect is going on at the moment, the public needs to be in a position to make that call for themselves. Has due process been followed? We don't know. We can only know if we get that information from the NNR. What we've also done is we have sought out legal counsel to assist us with the way forward. We're currently reviewing our options, but we'll keep our supporters abreast on any decisions OUTA take in the near future.
You know, call me paranoid, and call me deeply affected by Chernobyl and Fukushima, and perhaps too much so. But I think I represent a lot of South Africans who get a little bit weary when we hear the word nuclear, and unjustly so. I mean, nuclear power, if done correctly, is not dangerous power. We know that. Logic dictates that. But what you don't want is a explosion in your backyard, or a meltdown at your nuclear facility, and then live with it for hundreds of years. So I'm almost forced to ask, Liz, I'm going to ask you the question, what does the future look like for Kuberg? I mean, I've got Brendan's take on it, and I'd like your take, and especially on the safety side, Liz. How
safe is the car that you're driving that was built in 1985? Does its engine need any repairs? Are the tires still fine? And would it pass the safety standards for a car in 2022 in the design? And I think that, for me, is the answer. Is we're looking at a very old power plant, and whether we know anything about nuclear or electricity generation, or whether we're not an engineer or not, this is an old power station. If we are going to run it for another 20 years, there's a lot that would need to be done to make sure that it's running safely. And in that sense, what Brendan was talking about, the safety case that's being prepared, is something that must be subject to a lot of scrutiny. The civil society must be able to look at it. We must be able to bring in our own experts to critique it, because if someone once told me that if something was to go wrong at Kuberg like Chernobyl, the whole country would be devastated past Bloemfontein. So this is not something we want to happen. There's a very small chance, but if something goes wrong, it goes very, very wrong. So before we have regrets, let's do preparation, let's plan properly, and that means we need the information in order to judge for ourselves.
Goes back to transparency. Yeah, go ahead, Liz.
Yes, but the only thing that happens when you don't get the information is you start wondering what are the shortcuts, what are the corners that are being cut, and if they're genuine about what they're doing, then show us.
Well, transparency is the key word here, isn't it, when it comes to the NNR, so that South Africans and the general population can get the inside scoop, so to speak, on what's happening at the board, at the NNR. We're talking oversight, of course, and I always think of Parliament when I think of the word oversight. I think of Parliament's role and why it's there and why it's important. So I think it's oversight is a huge, huge part of the role that Parliament should play in protecting our democracy and this country. What is Parliament's role? Why are they there? Apart from walking on the red carpet at fancy events in nice clothes. And why is it important to have Parliament? These are the kind of questions I hear South Africans asking nowadays because we don't seem to see much coming out of Parliament. Your take on that?
So imagine we had a well-functioning Parliament where members of Parliament were elected by the population. You knew your rep was. They're sitting in Parliament. And you hear on OUTA Hour that there's a nuclear power plant, you're not sure what's going on, seems a lot of secrecy. You could get hold of your MP, and your MP went straight to work the next day and raised in their committee that there's an issue here that we need to address. And they would have had Minister Mantashe on the carpet within a couple of days and asking what's going on. But what is actually happening now is that we, as OUTA, having done quite an in-depth analysis of what's happening in Parliament, have come to the conclusion that Parliament is a failed institution from an oversight view. And seeing as Judge Zondo has been in the news over the last 24 hours, I wanted to read you one of the things he said when he was discussing Parliament, when Parliament was presenting. And he said, I think in the current system of oversight, the evidence that I have heard in this commission is as if there is no oversight in Parliament. He said it's like people can just engage in wrongdoing, not only nothing happens, not only no consequences, adverse consequences, but they continue or get given higher positions and nothing happens. It is like there's complete impunity. And this is, when we talk about state capture, this is a totally hollowed out institution. And it makes me personally very annoyed because I was working in Parliament in the early days of democracy. And there we were really trying very hard to create an institution that would really be effective in holding the cabinet to account. You can't necessarily get your minister or to officials in a department that's sitting in Pretoria, but you should be able to get to your member of Parliament and you should be able to raise issues. So that's what Parliament is supposed to do. The other thing Parliament does, it passes budgets. It is supposed to, you as whatever government department you are, you come to your relevant portfolio committee in Parliament. You say, this is my plan. This is how much money I need. And MPs are supposed to say, well, okay, let's just ask all the questions here. And let's look at, what are other people saying? And now we decide whether you get that money or not. But what we are seeing is something completely different. And that's what we looked at in the report.
Well, tell us about this report of yours, Liz.
So firstly, it's going to be on the website tomorrow and will be launched, and there will be a webinar so people can hear more detail. But I wanted to give you a couple of highlights.
Sure.
So what we found was that, firstly, Parliament is supposed to be Parliament of the people, which means that you should involve the people. What we saw under COVID, I think under COVID is a good term, was that Parliament jacked up their communications. So actually, a lot of people could sit and watch what was happening in the committees, which was very good. But it's not only about watching what's happening, it's about being able to engage and have your views and have them heard. And when we look at, particularly on the budget, the money bills, there's nearly 40 civil society organizations made comments into the various bills. You know, it's the budget and it's the appropriation bills, and they happen in May and April, and they happen in October. And every time there's an opportunity for people to say what they think is the problem. Do you know how many of those budgets changed? 0.
None.
So, yes. So in every instance, the Parliament let whatever was happening go and gave people the right to carry on with whatever money they were misusing. So then it gets a little bit worse, because the question then is, so what information did these MPs use to make their decisions? And so what we did, we studied a third of the committees in the National Assembly. So that's a fairly good sweep. You know, normally you get like 10% of your survey comes back and you say, okay, on that basis, we can make these conclusions. We studied a third, and we said, okay, let's look at all these reports that are passed by Parliament. Where did they get their information? And the reason that's critical, because this is about MPs not just drilling them on their money, but drilling them on their programs. What have they achieved? What have they not achieved? What should they be achieving? And in all of the committees that we looked at, bar one, no public input was used in coming up with their recommendations. So they sat there and they said, okay, Department of Energy, what is the problem? Department of Energy gives their best face forward, and they go, oh, okay, that's fine. And they pass everything. So that is effectively zero oversight. And let's use one small example. We have had, and OUTA's been involved in opposing and raising questions about the car power ships. So 14 civil society organizations wrote to the chair of the Portfolio Committee in April last year and said, we think you should investigate. Nothing happened. They refused initially. So then we wrote to the Speaker. And the Speaker, obviously having some muscle, told them they had to do it. We are sitting in January, February, March 2022. There's still no investigation underway. We hear the latest is the terms of reference are being discussed. So you can see how long this is going and how effective is that going to be. So that's what I think is, in summary, we have lots of information, lots of examples. We looked at how many times ministers came to visit the Portfolio Committee. In other words, that would show you how often politicians in Parliament could ask a minister to come and account. And then you have Home Affairs, it's like 60% of the time they came. Mineral Energy, 10%, 12%. So, you can get a feel for who's actually feeling accountable and who's not.
Well,
So, yeah.
Going forward, Liz, what are you going to use this report for?
So over the last couple of years, what we have done is use this report to expose the fact of what's happening, but not only that, to engage, because we are not anti-government. We want to constructively engage in order to strengthen democracy. So, and the things that the buzzword today was transparency. So we want to know what is the information that Parliament is using. We want access to the reports. They have a whole research section. Why should those reports not be made public? We want to have proper public participation. We want civil society's voice to be heard. We are the people that MPs represent. So our views need to be included. And where we have, like OUTA, a number of expert reports, these are what MPs should be taking into account in their oversight of the DMRE or the DPE or any, if you want to know what's wrong, you don't look and ask the same person you're trying to hold to account, what's wrong. What should we do now? Oh, well, they're going to say, no, take away our pocket money. No, they're just going to say, we're doing fine. Give us more. And so that's what we want to do, is we are going to tackle them head on and push that we want transparency, public participation, and a strong oversight function in Parliament, because otherwise our democracy is failing us.
Too true. Okay, we'll keep you up to date with those details as far as this parliamentary report is concerned. And as Liz said, it will be available, did you say tomorrow, Liz, on the OUTA website?
Yes. Tomorrow it gets launched on the website.
Fantastic. outa.co.za. If you haven't visited the OUTA website, go along to it now and then take another look tomorrow. outa.co.za is where you find all the essential information that you need as a civil activist. I'm going to ask each of our contributors tonight, Brendan Slade, Liz McDaid, and Ali Ghule, to, as we settle into the end, the last couple of minutes of the program, to just give us your proudest moments at OUTA so far. There'll be others, I'm sure, but just pick one out the hat. Liz and Brendan have got a minute or two to think about it, but Ali, you're in the hot seat, so I'm going to put you on first and say, over the last 10 years, Ali, what would be your proudest moment? If you could pick one moment.
I think Liz must come first. Okay. Because she's in Cape Town. Tom, there are too many proud moments. I don't know which one, but let me mention two victories. The victory against Dudumieni, that was a proud moment. That display the togetherness, the unity, the depth that OUTA has. That wasn't an easy case. And every day my team was out there. We're the only entity that when the case is going on in the court and something is happening outside, there's no organization like that. And the recent one was Arto, but there's many more in the next 10 years that are coming. The two victories for me stand out brilliantly.
And let me put the same question to Liz McDaid. Your proudest moment so far, Liz?
That's very difficult because every time I go into NERSA to talk about issues relating to ESCOM, I feel very proud that we can do this. And NERSA listens in terms of they acknowledge that OUTA is an important organization. I think that's very important. But I also think we did have one bridge brigade in Cape Town, and that also is a proud moment when you actually can stand on a bridge.
That's true. And
people are rooting and supporting you. It makes you feel very proud to be South African. So sorry, I got two. There's many more.
It seems like everyone's taking two tonight. All right, let's throw one or two at Brendan Slade. Your proudest moment or moments, Brendan?
Thanks, Tom. Well, if we speak in future tense, it will be the fall of ETOLs. But this is quite a difficult question. I thought if we had OUTA evening, I would most likely be able to answer you. But I must say my personal proudest moment was my first bridge brigade with Ali and the team. And that was on the N1 in Pretoria at the King's Highway Bridge. And you see all these 18-wheelers pass underneath, and it's just, wow, the hooting is ridiculous. But a little bit of a cliche answer is waking up in the morning and knowing I'm going to make a difference. And that's an everyday thing. My proudest moment.
And I think that encapsulates the energy and the feeling you get if you walk into the OUTA offices and meet the team. all proud to work for this organization. I certainly am, to present the OUTA Hour to you weekly on a Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Let me thank the team on air tonight quickly, and Ali Ghule. Thank you, Ali, and always nice to have you in the studio. It's been a while, man, and it's so nice to just sit opposite each other and have a good chat.
Next time you bring a bottle of champagne for celebration a decade.
Okay, who said I didn't bring one, and I'm going to open it at the end of the show. Then Brendan Slade, thanks for joining us tonight, Brendan. And Liz McDaid down in the Mother City. Liz, thank you for your time this evening. And Liz is on mute, but I think you're on mute, Liz. Try again. Oh, is it? Hold
I'm
on.
not on mute.
No, it's not you. It's me. I apologize. It's me. I pulled your volume down. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's always great to be here, and I think we need to be champagne corks popping all over the country this year.
Too true. Thank you. Liz McDaid is the Parliamentary Advisor for OUTA. Brendan Slade is the Legal Project Manager, and Ali Ghule is Community Engagement Coordinator. I'm Tom London with you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Hopefully with comments on screen, but we are trying new things. We're doing new things every week, and tonight we have multi-stream. That's the fancy word for streaming on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. So if you've been watching us on YouTube for the very first time, welcome to the OUTA Hour. And to our Facebook viewers, fear not, we will have your comments back on screen soon. I'll be sending off an email to our app supplier tomorrow to find out when. But I know you're there, and I know that Masego Motsoeneng has been dealing with you in the comment section on the Facebook page. Samantha Van Nispen has been communicating with you in the YouTube feed. The show is produced by Devaney Davids, and I'll be back with you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. It's a date. Don't be late. I wish you lots of money. I wish you lots of love. I wish you lots of joy and happiness, and most of all, good health. And most of all, that you come back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Don't be late. Until then, I'm Tom London, and I miss you already.
Our fight to eradicate corruption, maladministration, unethical leaders, and the abuse of taxpayers' money by those in power continues. It's fresh, it's fearless, and focused. The OUTA Hour, where your voice matters.